We are not here today to talk about what you want out of life. We're not looking at life hacks or strategies for getting more money, more status, or more comfort. Instead, we're going to examine the cold, mechanical reality of how human beings actually construct their existence. We're looking at the foundational error most men make long before they even realize they're building anything at all. The facts we're going over in this explainer are drawn directly from a structural analysis of how men operate, how they fail, and the invisible internal systems that are secretly governing their choices every single day.
Most human beings live their entire lives without asking why they are here. Now, that's not just some philosophical quote to put on a poster. It's a clinical diagnosis. Think about the fact that global polling consistently shows over 80% of people are completely disengaged from what they do every day. The average guy spends all of his waking hours completely obsessed with just two things. What do I want and how do I get more of it? He wakes up, he performs, he consumes, and he completely ignores the foundational question of his very existence. He treats "why am I here" like it's some irrelevant distraction. But in reality, it's literally the only blueprint that matters. Because here's the absolute truth. When you fail to answer this question for yourself, someone else is going to gladly answer it for you.
A man without a clear sense of purpose is borrowing someone else's. If you don't know why you are here, you aren't actually living your life. You are waking up every single day and just blindly executing a script that was handed to you by your parents, your culture, your boss, and the advertising that told you what to want before you were even old enough to make a decision. It's taking on that massive mortgage for a house that's way too big simply because it's the expected next step for someone in your tax bracket. The real tragedy here isn't just that a man is living a borrowed life. The tragedy is that he doesn't even know it's happening. There's actually a clinical name for a symptom that pretty much every man listening to this explainer has felt. It's called the gap. This is that low, constant dissatisfaction that you just can't quite put a name to. It's the persistent sense that something is missing, but you can't locate exactly what it is. A baseline restlessness. And the stark reality is that no achievement, no purchase, no promotion, and no relationship is ever going to fully quiet it down. You absolutely cannot buy or earn your way out of the gap. Because this feeling is the exact distance between the life you're currently living right now and the life you were structurally built for.
To really understand why this gap exists in the first place, we have to look under the hood at the internal architecture of a man's mind. There are two voices operating inside every man at all times. This is a structural fact. Yet, the vast majority of guys will go from the cradle to the grave, only ever getting acquainted with one of them. They live their entire existence under the dictatorship of a single voice, completely unaware that a totally different operating system was available to them the entire time.
We have to understand the stark difference between these two systems. Let's look at the lower self. It is loud, it's reactive, it's defensive, and it is fiercely competitive. It requires constant approval from other people because it can't find any validation within itself. It is obsessed with reputation because it mistakenly believes that reputation is identity. This is the part of a man that is built entirely out of conditioning and fear. But then, on the other side, there is the higher self. It's quiet, it doesn't compete, it doesn't fear, and it requires absolutely nothing from the outside because it knows exactly what it is on the inside. Every man has access to this higher self, not as some special reward, but as standard equipment. But most men never hear it, simply because that lower self is so deafeningly loud.
The problem is, modern life doesn't reward the higher self. It rewards speed, comparison, reaction, performance, and status. It rewards the lower self. And when a man allows his lower self to completely take over, it makes him dope, driven by other people's expectations. This is the clinical reduction of a human being into nothing more than a reactionary mechanism. He wakes up, he does what's expected of him, he conforms, he comes home, he sleeps, and then he wakes up and repeats the whole cycle. He's functioning for sure, but he is definitely not navigating. Somewhere around a man's late 30s or his 40s, the noise of that lower self briefly quiets down. The frantic pursuit of status just pauses for a second, and he is forced to ask the sobering question he really should have asked 20 years earlier. Is this actually my life? And for most guys, if they are being brutally honest with themselves, the answer is no, not entirely, maybe not even mostly. Looking around at his career, his habits, his obligations, the heavy realization hits him that the life he's living was assembled, piece by piece, from other people's blueprints.
If a man wants to dismantle that borrowed life, he has to first correct a massive fundamental error in how he views purpose. Purpose is a direction, it is not a destination. Most guys get this completely backward. They think purpose is a role to fill, or a title to earn, or some achievement to unlock in a video game. They treat it like a static location on a map. But purpose is a heading. The exact moment you begin moving in that direction, even if you're doing it imperfectly or slowly or unsurely, that unexplained weight sitting on your chest begins to lift.
So how do you find that direction? Well, you have to look at the cold facts of your own design. Every human being arrives on this planet with specific gifts and specific capacities, things you are simply wired to do better than most of the people around you. These are not accidents. They are signals, pointing directly at the reason you are here. Your deepest natural interests and your instinctual inclinations, those are the coordinates. If you are struggling right now, it's because you are actively ignoring the very tools you were issued.
If those signals feel totally buried right now, ask yourself this: what did you enjoy before the world told you what to enjoy? This is a massive clue that almost no one ever uses. You have to force yourself to look backward to a time before school trained your intellect toward a safe career, before financial pressure narrowed down your options, before other people's expectations became the actual walls of your life. Children are closer to their natural selves because their intellect hasn't yet learned how to override their instinct. What you loved before the conditioning set in is one of the most accurate maps you have to what you were built for.
The mechanical shift that has to occur here is simple, but it is absolute. You must start living from the inside out. The clearer a man's sense of purpose becomes, the less he struggles. Now, this isn't some blind optimism. Life doesn't just magically become easier, but the struggle ceases because he finally stops fighting himself. He stops wasting all his energy walking in directions that were never his to begin with. When you finally align with your original blueprints, you operate with a quiet certainty. You pursue work that uses your actual gifts, not work that just looks impressive to the guys around you.
But remember, aligning with your purpose does not somehow insulate you from difficulty. Life is a school. It's not a punishment. It's not some cruel test designed to eliminate the weak and reward the lucky. It is a curriculum. Every single experience you have ever had, every failure, every loss, every person who screwed you over, and every door that slammed in your face was a lesson. It wasn't random. It wasn't unfair. It was a mandatory part of your education.
The men who actually understand this architecture move through difficulty with a completely different set of mechanics. They don't look at failure with that reactive voice of the lower self, crying out, "Why is this happening to me?" That's the voice of the victim. Instead, they make a cold, mechanical shift. They ask, "What is this trying to show me?" That one single shift in processing completely rewires how a man interacts with the world and how he extracts value from his own suffering.
This creates a relentless, ongoing cycle of learning. Step 1, the world presents a lesson. Step 2, a man resists it, so the pattern just repeats itself. The difficult boss turns into a different difficult colleague, then a different difficult partner, then a different difficult client. The exact same situation keeps showing up in different costumes. Step 3, the man finally stops looking at the other person and actually examines himself. Step 4, he changes, and the pattern finally disappears. Not because the world suddenly became easier, but because he stopped needing that lesson to keep repeating.
And that brings us to this incredibly heavy truth. The deepest form of suffering available to a human being is not loss. It's not failure. It's not physical pain. It is the creeping suspicion that your life does not matter. And the only way out of that specific suffering is achieving the quiet certainty that you are here for a reason, that your specific gifts are actually needed, that the particular path you've walked, with all of its specific damage and all of its beauty, has been preparing you for exactly the work you are supposed to do next.
But that certainty is never going to come from the outside. It requires absolute responsibility. You forgot you had a choice. The tragedy isn't just that men follow someone else's path, it's that they forget they are the ones allowing it to happen. Stepping into that higher self means taking full, unblinking responsibility for exactly where your life is right at this very moment. It is not comfortable to hear, but it is a fact. No one else is coming to fix it for you.
Which leaves us with the only question that actually matters. Are you going to continue living the life you were handed, or will you start building the life you were made for? The blueprint you are currently using is either yours or it is someone else's. There's no middle ground. The time for avoiding the reality of your own existence has run out. And more importantly, if you sit here and realize that your current life is a borrowed blueprint, how do you even begin tearing it down without destroying yourself in the process? We will examine the cold mechanics of that demolition in the next explainer.